Well, hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday, and it's wonderful to see you again. And as I started the podcast, a dove came into my house and is now trying to get out. So, just a minute, I'm going to pop off as Lynn goes through. Oh, I think it got back. Anyway, I'm not sure. I'll check just now. I've got lots of doves that I feed, and they come into the house. They munch on the cat's food, and they hang around and poop in my house and sit on my couch, and it's their house. What can I say? But I've got my sliding door a little bit closed. So anyway, wonderful. Happy Tuesday, everybody. It's so good to see you in the chats. Welcome in, and welcome back to you, Lynn Monet. How are you doing, Lynnie?
I'm doing great, and thank you so much for having me. And speaking of them pooping in your house, it kind of sounds like San Francisco sidewalks right now in the USA, because we have so many homeless people there now. It's sad. So, but you know, it is what it is right now with the way that things are in our country. So kind of, yeah, I guess maybe I shouldn't have mentioned that, but yeah, there is a lot of that on the sidewalks in big cities. So,
yeah, I'm hearing that actually. And by the way, if anyone hears meow, meow, meow in the background, Lynn is fostering some baby kittens, so don't worry. They're well taken care of.
Yeah, they are. And one's a little bit extra needy, likes to sit in my lap all the time. So I'm looking to see where he's gotten himself. But yeah, they bring such joy, and they just make me smile all of the time. You just can't help it. Oh, there you are. You want to come up and say hello? Say hello, you little fuzzball. He's 4 weeks old. Aren't they cute? Come on, little one. You're fine.
well, what can I say? It's so cute.
Yeah, that's the one that he cries a lot. But yeah. You know what? I can move them if it's going to be. I didn't think that. I thought they were all sleeping. But if this becomes an issue, I can move them into a crate and kind of place them somewhere temporarily so that they're.
That's entirely up to you.
Okay.
I mean, I'm happy for them to be there unless they become problematic for you. That's absolutely
okay.
No problem.
Well, they're not problematic for me, but eventually he'll sit and settle. He's been fed and he's fine. He wants company. So. They're so little, and I'm Mama. Wherever he's going, he's complaining. Where are you? You've got food, you got water, you got everything. Okay.
All right. You want your lap, Mama? You want your lap?
Yes, that's right. He does. So.
Cute. Well, give it to him.
I will. That's why I'm reaching to grab for him to put him in my lap and just hope that he falls asleep there like he usually does. So anyway, I think he found a spot to go to. So that's a good thing. But I am so glad to be back on your show. I absolutely love this. I'm still haven't gotten completely around to redoing my website. As I mentioned, you're going to be a featured author, and People You Need buy Chantel's book. That is for sure. Don't forget to give this a thumbs way up, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Don't forget the notification bell. It's an important piece to the algorithms. So definitely ring that bell. So and subscribe. This is a wonderful channel. But Chantel has a book out too that I personally have a copy of, and it's an excellent book for no matter what age you are, 1 or 100, because it has so much good stuff in it for any person. I know that she wrote it as a children's book, but it's good. It can be for a person that's just kind of becoming enlightened. Regardless of their age, it's a very good book for that, to kind of, it's a segue to bring them into, and to taste it, so to speak.
It's in the kiddies book. I've done the kiddies version because I've done kiddies version and adults version. So I have a whole set of programs for adults and teens. And then the kiddies. So the kiddies is the same as the adults, and it's also written for teachers, so teachers can teach children with it.
That's right.
Yeah.
I
But
got
thank you.
the kitty version, but I love it because I have a daughter, you know, and for her to read it too. But I mean, I enjoyed it. I read it more than once, and there were certain parts that I like went back to that validated a lot of the things that I already knew, and some things were things that are like, oh well, you know, that's the missing piece to the puzzle. So that fits in right where I had that question, and now it fits, and now I understand better. So yeah, get all of her books. They're great books, and very, very well rounded and straightforward too. And she's got some beautiful pictures of her granddaughter and some animals and things, and of herself also in there. So definitely reach out and get one.
Thank you, Lynn.
You're welcome.
Appreciate the punt. So good. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Anyway, so let's talk about you now, because I know obviously you've been on a couple of times. My audience was introduced to you a couple of months back when you appeared with Jerry Marzinski.
Yes.
And for those of you, you know, who don't remember or don't know Jerry Marzinski, please go and watch my interviews with him. He's also taken on the medical mafia, by the way, in terms of mental health. So he's in his experiences and in the interviews, he talks about how he gets there, but comes to the realization that schizophrenia and extreme conditions like that are not voices in the head or hallucinations, but in fact entities. Then again, we look at what Caleb J tells us in terms of how they work in the arcane by extracting souls and pretty much keeping them within a crystal, containing them within a crystal or some type of soul gem. Doesn't have to be a crystal. And then they use that as a battery, you know, and that's very common in prisons and psych wards, which goes exactly hand in hand with what both you and Jerry were saying. Anyway, so Colleen was not Colleen, I'm reading the chat here. Lynn has been involved with Jerry in terms of also being a psych nurse, encountering these types of entities that really live off lower frequency energies. And I think that's very important for us to realize, is that as we raise our frequency, these things don't get to us anymore. And, you know,
so true.
And what I've realized as well, you know, for the word raise your frequency, for a lot of people don't even know what that means, because then to a lot of people, it sounds like some new age terminology, and it's so not. What it is, it's really lifting the essence of your being, your consciousness, to be more positive, more happy, more enlightened, more expanded. So each person has their individual journey of doing their shadow work. It really means you've got to do your shadow work so that you don't encounter that anymore. You know, so that's been part of the journey as well. But I know you've also had, you know, and you've spoken quite a bit about the paranormal experiences you've had in your little Bob in the garden and all of that, you know, sort of seeing through that, working with the elderly, you know, who are on their way, sort of exiting the earth plane, so to speak.
Yes.
So you've had some interesting experiences. You know what I think? What I think would be nice to hear in terms of for now is, especially working with the elderly. I think that is such an important task, you know, because many of them are alone and scared and pretty much indoctrinated as well. I think a lot of our older people have been indoctrinated. So what do you, I mean, maybe, how do you experience a lot of the older people sort of exiting? Do you see them being held back at all by entities? I mean, I know that when we're leaving, we're going to a better place, really. But I'm wondering, because a lot of old people really hold on to life. I mean, I know some old people, they are so ill and so in pain and so miserable, but yet they will continue to breathe and just to cling onto life. I'd be interested to know your take on that.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to mention, as with Jerry's things too, with the mental illness and pharma, that also comes into play with the older people as well. When people start to, bear with me, I'm going to have to put this little kitty away because he's pooping on me. So bear with me. I apologize. I'll be right back.
Okay. Well, obviously he's going to be in another little room for now. But yeah, it's just very interesting when we're looking at these things, when we're looking at the what a lot of people are saying now. And again, if we're watching Jessica Jones's show, along with Kevin as well, we're realizing more and more of these cryptid type animals or creatures. I don't want to call them animals because they're not necessarily animals, but entities are really, the veils are becoming thinner and thinner, and they are most certainly entering the earth realm. And I think what we can understand as well, us humans are very juicy for them. They feed off our fears. When we're looking at things like sleep paralysis as well. I've just listened to a whole thing on sleep paralysis, which is incredibly interesting, which is all about really entities as well, feeding off our vulnerabilities and our fears while we're sleeping. So we have to realize that these things are coming in beyond the veils, and they're after us in many ways. So it's very interesting to see what's happening at the moment. Anyway, Lynn. So yeah, I'm hoping Lynn will pop back now and just to sort of see. Yeah.
I apologize.
Cool. Okay.
Okay. I was listening to what you were saying, and again, I profusely apologize. Normally, this would not be an issue. This is something new, kind of, in my house, and I thought I had it under control, but I didn't.
No, please, no more apologies necessary. No more apologies necessary.
So it is now. There are a couple of things. For one thing, death and dying have taken on such a stigma of negativity for people because it seems to be so final. People don't realize that we don't die, that we simply leave our bodies and go. And I think that this puts a lot of fear in even older people that are getting close to time to pass, where they're grasping at straws almost sometimes because there were certain things that they goals that they wanted to meet in their lifetime, or things that they wanted to do.
Regrets.
And maybe, yes, exactly. And in the field that I worked in for 17 years in end-of-life care, and I am a certified death doula, which is kind of like a midwife is for bringing in babies. I'm a midwife for helping people transition smoothly over, which is what a death doula does. But, at the time that they actually cross over, most of the time there's such a peace that comes over them. And a lot of times too, dying is not painful. People, a lot of times they know when they're getting ready to cross over. They might start talking about, I'm going home tomorrow, or so-and-so. If something happens to me, will you please make sure that my daughter gets my cat, type thing. And then they cross the next day. And of course, everybody's like, oh, no, don't say that. Because again, death has such a stigma. I find that working as a nurse with the elderly people that are in that state of transition, it's usually the family members that are more uncomfortable with the dying process than the person that's actually transitioning in that process. And a lot of times when people are actively getting ready to pass, those veils start to efface between our realm and the other side. So they're able to see spirits, they're able to hear the telepathy, which is the way that they communicate on the other side, as well as they still are open to the physical side and able to hear people speaking in physical language, which during that transition time, people miss a lot of time that they can speak with people themselves on the other side, because they're in their grief. So they don't even think of asking, ask Uncle Bob what he did with the clock. You know what I mean? And then the person that's transitioning can give the answer through them. But the thing about it is how it relates to like the big pharma with medical mental illness and things like that is everything's all about medication. So when people start to talk about seeing loved ones, the family immediately, you know, I had a, for instance, of a family that came to the nurse's station. They want medication to be given because they're uncomfortable with the fact that a dead person's being spoken to or spoken about in the room, even if it's somebody that they're familiar with, like an uncle or somebody that they know, they get creeped out. So it's more comfort measures for them because the person getting ready to transition is fine. And I have a lot of stories that I'd be happy to share with you if you'd like to kind of bring that home.
I think what I find interesting and what I'm hearing also, what's coming to me more and more is I think once, and especially let's talk about old people, because in this particular case, because I think, as I mentioned earlier on, I think there can be quite a lot of issues at play with an old person transitioning. And I'm wondering, have you ever come across someone who has not been at peace
Yes.
when they've died? Because in my opinion, and I've encountered that as well, is that when they're not at peace, there's a lot more almost of a fight, right? I don't know if it's entities at play, which is kind of like why I'm asking you, and I think we can look at if we're looking at it as literally as in religion, were you going to heaven or hell, right? I mean, look, let's just agree there are many layers about that. But what I'm saying is if someone is really tormented and if they have done things that they've hidden, maybe that they're extremely guilty about, or I don't know, whatever else there could be, and maybe are really fearful of the afterlife, then they could hold on, because often with religion, there's so much judgment and so much fear around what happens after we die, right? And I'm saying this because again, it brings to mind a situation I was in a number of years back, and this old lady was in this old age home. She was 92, and one of the workers there, she knew me from the work I was doing. And this lady had now for 3 days been on death's doorstep, hallucinating, crying, and carrying on. And she could not go, and she was becoming severely traumatized. So she called me and she said to me, "Is there anything you can do?" I said, "Well, I can certainly come and have a look, because I have no idea." And when I was working with her, I could see that Jesus, in her mind, was right there. And she kept sitting up in her bed, crying and weeping and reaching for this figure, but then would slam back down again on the pillow and weep incoherently. And then I literally, through what I do, I then understood that there was a lot of things she did when she was a child, actually, crimes she committed when she was a child. I don't know where Lynn is now. I hope she's coming back. Are you there, Lynn? There she is. That she could not let go of before she crossed over. So this was holding her back. And once I understood that, I knew how to work with her. And then within 24 hours, she had crossed over. So I want to know your experiences on stuff like that. You're on mute. Okay, I think Lynn seems to have a bit of a sound problem. Okay, Dale, I want to just see your comment here. My mother was not at peace and was around me for 2 years in spirit. She felt guilty for the way she treated me and was scared I wasn't there when she passed. But I have to. And I think that's a great thing. And I think when we're looking at death and dying, or having loved ones cross over around, us, there's a lot of guilt that we feel. And I always say guilt is the most destructive emotion in the fear-based camp. As long as there's guilt, there's a sense of non-deservability, which translates into poverty consciousness. And that's how we end up living our lives, whether it's through money, relationships, friendships, business, whatever. We always feel like we're in lack. And that is coming from guilt. So when we understand, we're all here learning lessons from each other. We're all just on this path together. And I'm sure, oftentimes we have our mothers or our parents who didn't treat us well. But what I've also understood is that, especially if people get old, when they get old, what they realize is that it's kind of like they start remembering things and they start regaining clarity about things. And I found as well, they almost go back to being childlike in many ways. So they kind of get back and they realize their mistakes in many ways. And I think once that peace is made between a family member and, let's say, the one that's passing, and all it takes is to be standing next to that person's bedside and hold their hand, excuse me, and hold their hand and say, I love you, it's fine, go home, we're good, yeah. I mean, that's what I did with my dad. My dad was extremely worried my mom wasn't going to be okay. And I said to him, Dad, and I mean, also I did work with him. He was also, his legs weren't working. And I could see his energy was completely stuck only in his chest, and he had emphysema. And my father was a big 6'6" man, strong, healthy, charismatic. I mean, amazing. And then, in fact, on his 80th birthday, I was there with my granddaughter, and she was about 2 at the time, and I could see what was going on. And I sat there and I just worked energetically with him. And my granddaughter and I released his spirit, the soul that was stuck, the part of him that couldn't let go. And on the third day, I knew I had to do it for 3 days in a row. And on the third day, I stood next to him and I held his hand. And my granddaughter was amazing. You should have seen her, the energy she was just a conduit for. It was absolutely incredible. And she was 2, right? And then I held his hand and I said to him, Dad, we're going to take care of Mom, don't you? And he looked at me, he says, are you sure? I said, Dad, there's 6 of us. We're going to take care of Mom. She's going to be fine. And literally the next day he passed away. So wow. It's amazing, I think, when we start realizing and just making that peace. I think more than anything, we battle and we find our way to hell, right? When we ourselves haven't made peace with our lives. I don't know what's your take on that.
And I apologize. I got knocked off for some reason. Our internet must be wonky. So that may happen again.
No more apologies, please. No more apologies.
I've also experienced what you have mentioned in not being a family member, but as a nurse. I've had one person that literally fought death for 10 days. Literally. I mean, I don't know. I've never seen anybody go on that long. And the thing is that I don't know what came in to retrieve him because I wasn't there that day. I was off the day that he actually passed. But normally I see presences coming forward to help the person transition over. So even if they're alone in the room with no physical people in the room, they never pass alone. But I have seen other people out of concern, as you had mentioned, too, where, for instance, there was a gentleman that was caring for his wife who had Alzheimer's, and he assumed that she would pass first, but she didn't. And he passed first. And the thing is about when we go to cross over, you have the choice of whether you want to cross over or not. So there are a lot of people, and those people that choose not to cross over, the ones haunting houses and shaking your bed in the middle of the night and, being little stinkers, of that sort of thing. And then there are other people too that just simply get lost because in the situation of like with this man and his wife, he lingered on earth around her, still continuing concerned about her care. And then she finally came for her time to pass over. So he never rested at peace and crossed over. He chose to stay earthbound out of his responsibility to her. And I've seen people do this over pets. I've seen them do them over children. I've seen this happen, a couple of times. But then when she crossed over, he had been earthbound so long that he had lost his way, and he needed help then at that point in time crossing over. Recently, I've also found too where I have a resident elemental at my house in Louisiana. I call him Bob, and when I first found out about him, he actually had souls that were what I called like balloons to him, and I misunderstood that he was keeping them for his entertainment, and he wasn't. He was protecting them. And what I learned is that there are sometimes that there are souls due to their illness and due to what depression, their level of energy is very, very low at the time of crossing over, and they just don't have enough of a vibration to get there type thing. So they have to be helped, like in the case of with Chantel helping her dad, not that his energy level was low, but something needed to be shifted with that in order for him to either want to transition or feel more comfortable transitioning. But there are people that maybe they have suffered an illness for so long, and on top of it, they have comorbidities or depression and things like that from it that just continue to lower their vibration, that they're kind of stuck pulling down in the lower levels to begin with. And it's not that they're bad people. It just, they have suffered or something. And then in the case of Bob, he collected them to protect them, because a lot of times when people don't cross over, they choose not to cross over. Eventually, there's some dominant, usually darker force that will try to take advantage of them or control them and keep them in fear for their entertainment, so to speak. So, but he was protecting them, and they now have all been crossed over. Their energy has been elevated. But I have seen that in the case of people that they're worried, well, what about my daughter? What about my handicapped son? Nobody's going to be able to care for him. They do have these worries, and they will anchor them here. As well as what you had mentioned with traditional religion, sometimes they don't feel worthy to cross over based on what their belief system is. So they kind of stay stuck.
And I agree with you, Jojo, that I do believe, I think also in my experience, having from birth really seen through the veils, one of the things I could always see was earthbound, like what people call ghosts. Okay. Mm-hmm. And definitely, and there's a difference between a ghost and like a demonic entity. We must always remember that.
And a spirit, yeah.
Yes. And oftentimes a ghost is, what I found is that it's people that die suddenly, like a shock, like maybe a suicide. Very oftentimes you are going to find people, and why that is because they immediately have regret. That's the only reason why, not because they're being sent to hell, because there is that misperception that if people take their own life, they're going to hell. That's not true. But what often happens is that soul will, because some suicides, yes, it depends also the reason, the intention. Remember, the intention is everything. So if you really are in pain and you're suffering, absolutely. Or if you just can't bear it anymore, absolutely. But if you do it out of a knee-jerk reaction because you're angry with your mother or your husband or your whatever, and you decide to take a gun and put it to your head, that's when the soul immediately feels that regret and wants to stay there. It wants to stay there to make sure that, because there's so much trauma, there's so much unexpectedness that goes on in these situations. So, yes, there are times where they are scared of hell, Joanne, absolutely. That's what I was saying earlier on, and so therefore they do remain on the earth realm as well. Sometimes I remember as a child, the first spirits I could see was a lady and her 2 children. That was always every night, or maybe it wasn't every night. It wasn't every night, but lots. So I would imagine, if I'm thinking now, it might have been at full moon or maybe something like that. But she was standing in my bedroom with her two girls looking outside that window, and I could not understand what she was doing. And then I asked my grandmother, who was psychic, and she said, "Oh, do you see her too?" I said, "Yes." So she said to me, the legend has it that many years before we lived there, her husband left, and it was like in the Boer War or the something war that we had here, and he never returned, and she was always waiting. So I said, okay. And then I said to her, but she can go back. And I said to her, she can go back to heaven now. And she said, yes. Should we help them? I said, yes. And my grandmother and I were the first, that was the first thing that I did. So since then, I just, oftentimes when they're ready, and even if they come attacking me, I know when I encounter a spirit, whether it comes in peace or it comes in vicious violence and tries to spiritually attack me, it's ready to go back to God. And all I do is I just send it back, and it goes back to God. So that's the way I deal with these things, because very often, and you know what I find funny as well, Lynn, is the ones I see, oftentimes, and I might have said this before, and if I have, apologies, but oftentimes I can see them, but they don't know that I can see them. And when they see that I can see them, they get such a fright, this look of shock on their face, like, ah! And then
that is so true. Well, that is absolutely so true. I had for instance, with sorry, what else is going on today with my things? I don't know. I'm just, we'll just go with it. So, I had a patient that was actively passing on a hallway, speaking of that. And as I'm standing at the med cart, I'm looking into this sitting area that has these pillars, and there's a ghost of a man who has not crossed over, and he's peering around the pillar at me. Now, when people are getting ready to pass and their loved one starts coming in, other beings will come around too, just out of curiosity. They'll come to watch and see, because they can see the angels and things also. And I said to the man, I said, "You there?" I said, "Why haven't you crossed over?" And he literally was looking over both of his shoulders to see who I was talking to, because he had been so long on Earth. The way that he appeared to be like from the 1800s by his clothing. He appeared to, he wasn't upper class, but like maybe upper middle class, because he had nice clothes on, type thing, and that he obviously was buried in. And the thing is when people have not crossed over, I can see the cause of death. And in his case, he had a Swiss cheese appearance to the area on his abdomen where his liver would be. So to me, that meant that he died of a corrosive disease like cancer or cirrhosis of the liver. And so he's looking over his shoulder, and I said, "No, you there, sir, I'm speaking to you." And he was very shocked. Like you said, he was like, "Huh, nobody has noticed him in forever." And I said to him, I said, "This lady here is getting ready to cross. I can help you cross if you would like to go." And he came to my cart, and this man had a very heavy Irish brogue. He was a handsome man too. He looked to be like maybe in his late 30s, early 40s, very handsome man. And I said to him, and I tried to encourage him that I would help him cross over. And he told me, he said, "Me lady, I can't cross over." And I said, "Well, sure you can. Why, of course you can cross over. I can help you cross over right now." He said, "My mistress and my wife are on the other side, and neither one knew about the other." So he chose to stay earthbound here because he didn't want to have to go and face either of them on the other side. So,
and that is true, guys. It is true. If your spirit is not awakened, if your soul is not awakened, I promise you this sort of thing happens. And it's not, you see, we must understand, it's not, these spirits don't dwell in hell. They're not evil. They're not running around, whatever. But what happens is, let's say they've been in the realm just beyond us, so to speak, okay, for like 200 years. That gets a little bit boring, okay? So eventually they can get quite frustrated And that's when we can say the house is haunted. And no, we're not talking about a poltergeist either. That's a very different thing. But
Yes.
often they get frustrated because they can't understand why you're not seeing them and who's moving into their house. So they start hitting things off. And that, of course, they've got to go to quite a low vibration to be able to hit a physical object off a table or a wall or something, but they manage to do it. And that's why I say, so there are these things. So these are the ones I often work with as well. Obviously, all sorts, lot worse than that as well. But you'll often find in your graveyard, for example, there's a lot of spirits there. Some of them are just peaceful. Some of them just sit and chill on their own graves, hanging out there, just seeing, and then you come there and then they go, and others are pacing.
Yes.
I remember seeing that a few times. A guy that was killed I looked on his gravestone, he was killed on a motorbike. And he left so many, what do you call it, loose ends. And it was something a bit like the wife and the girlfriend, but that plus a whole lot of illegitimate children as well. And no money, left people without money, stuck without any. And that's why I say there was a sudden death. That was a motorbike accident and he was drunk. It was a drunk driving. Because I went and I researched that. I took his name on the gravestone. And I went to the obituaries and I researched and I looked on Facebook and everywhere. And I figured out what had happened to him. And that was quite interesting.
Yeah, and sometimes too, sometimes they don't want to be crossed over. There are pubs in the United States up near Pennsylvania that if you go in them, there are ghosts of mafia in there with their mistresses. And when you go to approach them and say, listen, you've been here a long time. Would you like to, I can help you cross over? They're like, no, I'm good. They also don't want to cross because they don't want to meet with their wife on the other side, but they choose not to be crossed over. And they're just happy doing what they're doing, as a group of them all together, they got all their buddies and stuff in there. So, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, please carry on.
Oh, no. So I was just saying, so sometimes people, even when spirits have the opportunity to cross over, like that gentleman who had the Irish brogue, I even said to him, I said, your wife and your girlfriend died a long time ago. They may not even be there anymore. I said, and not only that, when you cross over, you have a different mindset. You understand why some things played out the way that they did and how you kind of chose some of those things for yourself, even before you came into the lifetime. I said, they're probably not even there. I said, so you've got a couple of choices here. I said, I said, most people can't see you. And if they did, they'd run screaming from you. I said, and I'm here, I can see you. This is a once in a 200-year chance that I can help you cross over. And he just smiled at me and faded away. I never saw him again. So I guess he made his choice. He still was not comfortable with crossing over. So they can
carry on.
I'm sorry. I said they can actually, the ghosts that are stuck in that fourth dimension, the dimension between here and the other side, they can see each other walking around in there. But there are a lot of other creepy things walking around in there too that know how to manipulate the veils and use the portals to enter in and out. Bigfoot aliens, all of those, they use that area. It's kind of like a freeway in there. So
anyway. They absolutely do. Which is super interesting. Anyway.
Yeah, it is. Talking about hallucinations too, and people seeing loved ones with the elderly, a lot of times they'll start seeing and talking about seeing their loved ones even a year in advance of their crossing. And the medical field immediately runs saying that it's hallucinations. With mental health, they use lithium and different kinds of medications. They use the Seroquel and the Buspar for the elderly people when they think that they're having dementia and hallucinating with it that way. But I had a patient that was blind. She'd been totally blind for 10 years. And if you'd like me to share that story, I'll be happy to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to do that. I want to just quickly answer here, Linda. I do believe that. Yes, we do. I also do believe our souls are on different vibrations. So Sometimes, you're going to connect with souls that you were very good friends with, your immediate sort of soul family, so to speak. But every soul, even, as we do in the physical realm, so in the spirit realm, we also have our learning and growing and expanding to do. And I wanted to say this. There's an amazing guy, Dr. Michael Newton, and he's written a book called Journey of Souls. And the second one is called Destiny of Souls. Now, Dr. Michael Newton, I had him out in South Africa sometime in the 2000s. And at the time, he was 72. He's passed away now, sadly. But what an amazing man. What he did was he was a psychiatrist. So, and he used hypnotherapy to, do whatever it was on his patients in a clinical hypnotherapy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then one day he had this client, and she was permanently depressed, and he could not figure out where the heck she could, where this was coming from.
Mm-hmm.
So he regressed her. And what happened was she then went into the spirit realm. And then she could see, she went, oh my gosh, there they are, there they are. And he said, who, what? She said, my soulmates. He said, what are you talking about? She said, now I remember that in this life, because I was always so codependent on all my soul family, right? Like your family. In this life, I chose to live independently and not have them to be part of my circle. And my soul really misses them. And that's why I'm depressed. And in that moment, everything changed because she understood her soul's purpose. But what he does then, and since then, he has had clients that he regresses, and he calls it life between lives. So what happens once we die and before we come back again? So the complete journey of leaving your body and before you come back again and reincarnating. It is fascinating, and he is brilliant because there was one guy, for example, who was a military guy, and he died in the war, and he went into a past life where he was killed in the war. He says, I'm dead, I'm dead, I'm dead. And he says, well, what's your badge number? And the guy gives him his badge number. And of course, Dr. Newton goes and researches that, and it proves to be completely true. So there's a lot of that is very, very well researched. But I want to tell you, this book came to me. I've always believed in life after death. This book came to me when my fiance was killed. And it was available in America. It wasn't even available in South Africa yet. And she brought it for me because she had just been to America. And I read this book. I must have read it 100 times over, because the case study is in there and the proof is irrefutable. And we have to realize that we continue often cycles like this. And he talks exactly about this when the souls don't cross over, and the different vibrations and how we move. You're going to go where you're most comfortable. You're not going to go where it's too bright or too dark, right? You're going to hang out and chill where you feel happy. And that's the vibration where you're at. And that's the lessons you're learning. And then when you come back again, you get coached. You get sat down with God, your creative team, and you understand why you come back and what the lessons are you need to learn. But we forget them. We come here with anemia, as we should, because there'd be no purpose otherwise, right? But then when we start remembering, and that's why we recognize people. There's something about your voice. There's something about you I recognize. Where do I know you from? And of course, it's not always positive, because life hasn't always been positive yet. But that's what I'm saying, So when we understand these things, we automatically move to a lighter frequency. And that's why I'm saying this. For me, I was so, as we say in Afrikaans, deurmekaar, as a teenager. Like, I was just a rebel and I didn't have any direction. I wasn't like this bad, druggy kid. I just hated authority. No one was going to tell me what to do. Screw you. Until I understood my astrology. And that's the thing, because I'm a double Aquarian, I understood myself. I'm not crazy. I am different. I do have these gifts. Now I know what to do with them. So when we understand these things about ourselves, we can then move forward in a way that we know where we're headed in life. And I promise you, then these things, these entities, these energies, these things that suck off your life force, they disappear. Your frequency becomes indigestible to them. It's too healthy for them. They're like chocolate, sludgy, triple sugar, marshmallow, caramel, whatever. Think about that, as opposed to having something healthier, which is enjoyable, light, nutritious. Think about that, how your body feels afterwards. Think about that. So that's where we're at. And that's why I say this, is because entities can only attach themselves to us if we are of that nature where they can. And they, that vibration where they can chomp onto us and suck onto us like a leech, because that's what they are. They are all leeches. Parasites.
That is so true. Yeah, that is so true. And, people don't realize too, how habits can also draw them in. And these may not necessarily attach to you, but they do want to hang out with you. So you'll hear them talking. And sometimes they're the ones that are talking in your ear. So, if you have the ability, like Chantel and I both have, you walk into a pub and you see dead people standing around somebody with a drink. You'll see dead people standing around people on their cigarette break. Or the guy that's in the peep show, I got news for you. You're not in there by yourself. You probably have a whole audience of fans that are watching with you, and you probably should be paying admission for what you're doing in there. So, it just, hey, they feed off of the depression, the addiction, all of those things. And the main thing, something that I found recently that is so simple to protect yourself with in an instance, if you are feeling uncomfortable. Also, the thing is too, is they've recently done studies on smiling, and that even if you're depressed, if you make a pretend smile on your face, your brain doesn't understand that you're faking it, and it releases some of the dopamine and the endorphin from that movement of your mouth that actually kind of make you feel better. But the thing is that love is a repellent to these things. They can't stand it, and that's what Chantel was talking about. The healthy diet is the love light, whereas you're not down in the anger and the jealousy and the pity pot. Even you got to stay off that pity pot, because your thoughts also, you have to be responsible for your thoughts. What you are thinking goes out into the universe and creates your future. So if you're sitting there and you've had a bad relationship and you want to talk to 50 people about the same thing over and over again about how he did you wrong, then you're asking the universe to send in another man that's going to treat you that way. So you've got to focus on your thoughts in the direction of and see yourself where you want to be 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and focus as if it is already happening, to have those good things come to you. Because people are like, oh, well, I go into a party and I always attract the weirdo. Well, you just said it, and you just set yourself up to attract the weirdos.
Exactly. It's so true.
You've got to be responsible for your thoughts and things like that. And also keep in mind too, that everything on the other side is done by thought. So if you're somebody that is an active person that loves to use profanity, and you get your moment to cross over, and you're saying it in your mind, but not out loud with your mouth, it's going through there like a megaphone, type thing.
Totally.
SHIT moment, you know what I mean? And here you are standing in front of Jesus, and you're like, oh,
Right. I mean, sorry.
yeah, it's really, it's like, whoo, it just comes right out. Or you see Esmeralda, and you're like, oh no, not her. She had really bad breath. But you know what I'm saying? So you're kind of like hiding, but that's going out there, you know, and really, even on Earth, those thoughts that go out, people pick them up. I mean, how many times have you been in a restaurant and you're sitting there and you just feel somebody looking at you and it makes you turn around and you see this person staring at you. And all of a sudden they look away real quick because they catch you looking at them, looking at you type thing. So, you know, that energy is there. But yeah, it just, you got to be careful of what you think and what you're making in your thoughts because you're stirring your own soup. That is for sure.
That all boils down to the topic of entities. I want to just say all of the stuff we're talking about is really all entity-based or non-based, right? You want to look at it that way.
Yes.
So the whole thing is your thoughts, and remember your emotions are the fuel. So how you feel, and it starts with, if you've got a really negative output, right? A negative thought process going on in your head. And I want to tell you, most of us have. Most of us do. How many of us don't say to ourselves, oh my God, you're so stupid, and I can't stand the way I'm behaving or thinking, and I'm so fat, and oh my gosh, I wish I could lose 10 kilos. Oh, look at the pimples on my face. Oh, look at my disgusting hair. Whatever it is. You see, the more we say these things, we don't realize, and as we know by now on this channel, because we're in masterclass by now, it's spell casting, right? And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, because
That's
what you tell yourself is what your body hears. It's what your cells hear. It's what you hear. And you are what you tell yourself you are, which is why it's so important that we are encouraging with our kids, for example, because that's where our children will learn it from. That's where you learned it from. But if you learned incorrectly, and all of our parents made mistakes. Hello, I'm a single mother here. I mean, if I had to do podcast with my son, I would not. No, I would not. I would not do a podcast. He could tell you, no, I would not. Anyway, I'm kidding. That's what I'm saying, because, you know, I mean, all mothers make mistakes. We make mistakes and we have guilt, and all of us make mistakes. We're trying the best we can. Even when you're a drug addicted mother, you're still trying on something, whether it's to sell your body so you can bring your child a meal home. I don't know. We're still trying in our own way, right? We always must look at these things. So when we realize that the way we think about ourselves, the things we tell ourselves in our mind, that's where it begins. You know, in yoga, one of the that's not a principle of yoga, but belongs to one of the legs, the limbs, so to speak, something called ahimsa. Ahimsa means non-violence. Now, directly, people can say, okay, well, means don't kill anything, or you're a vegan or whatever. As well, yes. But it really means compassion. And it really means kindness. And ahimsa, or non-violence, starts in your own mind. Your own thoughts are the thoughts that sow the seeds of violence or of peace. So go back to your childhood and think about the seeds that were sown in your mind by those that were in control of you, and know that they were not you. That is not you. And your job now is to uproot that bush that's grown in your head now. That's your job. You were not responsible for the seeds that were planted and the trees that grew from them. But right now where you're at, it is your responsibility to uproot the tree if it's not indigenous to your mind. And it's that simple. And how do you do that? Well, you acknowledge it to yourself. You start by acknowledging to yourself, I have pain, I have wounds, I have aggression, I have anger. Everything around me is telling that. I choose to stop. I choose to stop. Choice, decision. You make a decision. Not going to be easy, because you're going to be rattled around in your cage for a while after that, going and running off, doing all sorts of things that you should be doing. But you train yourself. You coach yourself. You love yourself into alignment. That's really what you need to do. You got to start by loving yourself. And only when you love yourself can you show your children real love, true love. And it doesn't mean you're not kind or unkind, but what true love really is. Not something that someone has indoctrinated you with. And that's very important, that we know the difference between guiding our children and allowing them to develop their own little beings, but still having enough faith to know that they chose you to be their guide, which means you don't let them run around and do stupid decisions when they're 6 years old, cutting off their boobs or whatever it is, or whatever.
Yeah. I hear that.
So that's what I'm saying. We've got to be discerning. That's where wisdom comes in. That's how we know how wise we are. When we put someone else ahead of our own needs, you understand there's a bigger force at work here. And when you understand there's a bigger force at work, you just automatically want to be there. And a really beautiful thing that I want to say is your soul is not inside your body. You are inside your soul.
That's beautiful.
Get that picture. You see, when you turn it around like that, very different. Now you just see this cascading beam of golden light that envelops you, and you just feel the love of your soul, and your soul will guide you. It always does. But be patient, be loving, be prepared to face some hard truths sometimes, but the truth sets you free. And that's how we don't get attached to the negative entities.
That is so true. That is so true. And, and exhibiting love is so important too. Even, talking about the smiling part and in addition to what Chantel was also saying, if you're in a moment that you have some concerns or the energy feels a little bit off, or even if you're at work and there's this one coworker that just makes you itch, that you just can't, there's something about this person. Usually they're reflecting something to you about yourself that you don't like, and that's why you don't like them. But this person makes you itch. They're very annoying to you. If you can sit in that moment and drop into your heart, because they have found that the heart, and I may have mentioned this before, and forgive me if I have, that the heart has 50,000 times more memory in it than the brain does. And I think I mentioned before about the little girl that got the heart transplanted. I mentioned about that on the show ever before. Do you remember? I don't think so. Okay, well, there was a little, and I'll say this to bring this part home, and how important and how strong the heart is in radiating love at that person. You may see a shift in their behavior towards you, and you may have a softening towards what you're tolerating. As far as that person, you're looking at them in more loving eyes, more understanding, and they're feeling it, and they're changing and evolving into something more pleasant, just as you speak. But there was a little girl that was 11 years old in the United States, and she needed a heart transplant. There was another little girl who had been brutally murdered that was around 12 years old. She was brutally murdered by some unknown assailant, and the family decided to donate her organs make her an organ donor. The little girl that was 11 received the 12-year-old's heart. And after about 6 months, and this, you can look this up online, people. This is a true story, and it goes into many, many more like this. This little girl at about 6 months after her surgery and receiving that heart transplant started to have night terrors. And she was having flashbacks about what happened to the little girl that she got the heart from. And then within 2 years' time of her receiving that heart transplant, she was able to identify the murderer of the little girl whose heart she received, that they didn't know who it was. And she was correct. She identified the man who murdered the little girl whose heart she had. Wow. So that's how much memory, the heart is. And when we drop out of our head into our hearts, we have a tendency to have more sensory on, and we look at people in more of a compassionate way instead of, being upstairs all of the time where we got monkey mind, like Chantel was talking about our mind. I call it monkey mind, where we got a little 3-year-old running around in our head with no boundaries and blah, 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 so we've got to catch them, hone them in, reel them in, and have them sit down and teach them a few things. But that's how our minds are. We've never become disciplined in our thoughts. We have always been willy-nilly and just kind of letting them go, and then letting the emotions drive that vehicle even more so. And the emotions don't necessarily come from the heart. They come more like your solar plexus area. The heart is completely different than that. It's a very loving space. But if you can change a lot of your situations, and if you are feeling uncomfortable, if you even sit and radiate love in the room, you just imagine your heart chakra and hearts like sonar coming out into the room, and you just love, 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 love. And you can either envision the person, you can be looking at the person, you can just be envisioning the room filling with all of this pink light. It's a repellent to anything that temporarily comes through that wants to be mischievous. And it will make them shrivel up like a raisin. It will make them run out of the room, and it disables them from being able to do physical acts. When you sit there in that fear and that discomfort, you start radiating energy that they pick up on, and it feeds them, and they then are able to do more physical acts to make you scream louder and run out of the room so that they can continue to get their fix. But it's so important to even if you're faking it, they don't know the difference. So if you're smiling when you don't feel like it, if you are radiating love into a room, they're going to feel that, and they're going to run. So keep that in mind, and it might make you feel a little bit better too.
Think about if you are driving down a road with your headlights on bright. I mean, you go, you look away. Mm-hmm. That light that we shine, that exactly what you're talking about, Lynn, that you radiate when when you walk in God's light.
Yes,
I'm not talking, because what a lot of the people in the arcane do, I guess, the Luciferian, these guys are very clever with energy. They know how to project an aura that looks in a certain way, but when it's not coming from your true essence, it's not going to be lasting, and there are going to be glitches in your aura. Do you know, I've had people on this channel that have come to me, in fact two, and about a year apart, telling me that they had no idea what to make of me in the beginning, but they've been watching my aura and it's never glitched. And I said, well, more people should learn how to look with your third eye, because when you open up your third eye, and it's not something you go to a healer for, by the way, or a psychic or something. It's something that occurs of itself when you've done the sufficient shadow work on yourself. Your third eye then opens and your perception changes. You receive your natural gifts again. It comes of itself. It's like opening the windows, the curtains of a room. You walk, suddenly you find a room in your house and you open, oh gosh, I remember what was in here. You walk in, you open the curtains and the lights in, and you go, oh, I remember I had this. Let's play piano. Let's do your gifts. You find your natural gifts again. You don't have to go hunting for them. Mm-mm. They come to you. Why? Because you've done the relevant shadow work. You haven't, there's no conditional here. You see, when you're looking at the negative entity, it's always like, okay, there's always a trade-off of something. There's always a trade-off. So much money for that, so much for that. Boom, otherwise I'm going to shoot you. Otherwise, I'm going to take out your family or whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. There's no currency when you are of the light, because you understand that doing your own shadow work, benefits you, but not only you, because God uses you as a conduit. And when your body is full of blocks and all sorts of things, God cannot use you effectively. So you've got to have a desire to work for the greater good. You've got to put your selfish needs aside, which means it doesn't mean you don't get to do your own will, that you don't have your free will being the operative word, yeah. but then your free will kind of changes. You don't want to do things that are selfish and destructive anymore. Doesn't mean you don't know how to go out and have fun. Oh boy, you do. Trust me, you do. You get up to lots more mischief than what you ever did before. Well, at least
That's
I do.
true.
I love
That's
it.
true. Me too.
But I know I get up to mischief knowing God has got eyes on me all the time.
That's true. And yeah, that's
You
true.
see what I'm saying? There's a difference.
Yes.
There's a big difference.
There's a huge difference. And, people can turn things around. And another thing too, it's not, in addition to your auric field, keeping it clear, it is so important. And I know, some people, they live in small areas, but keeping your house organized and clean, because when it's not, it also draws in a negative pull to it. And a lot of times, a lot of times people will call me, and want me to come and clear their house, and you can't even walk inside. And it's like, oh no, I can't. There are too many places for the negativity to live in all of the hiding spaces. And also, this is depressive energy that you're living amongst all of this clutter, and in some cases, garbage. So, it's very, very important that you keep. I know that some people are probably looking at each other right now, but that you keep the energy be able to flow through your house, and that you got to keep your house clean.
We know, Jojo, we know. We've all had that. Lots of demons hiding in those rooms.
Hey, I tell you, no, that's fine. They do hide it, and they feed on it, because having that hoarding mentality is also, it depletes your auric field. It does. Certainly. And it allows them to attach and create more havoc and depression and all of the things that go with that, and the family dynamic of it, the rippling effect that it creates. And you deserve better than that. You deserve.
But it's also, it's really true. Cleanliness is next to godliness. And we have to remember that. And that, and even the Satanists understand that, guys. We know when they're doing their rituals and things, they bathe, cleanse, looking beautiful, got the best smelly incenses and oils and whatever it is they do, right? They know how to work, and they know how to harness the energies. Remember, energy is unemotional. Anyone can harness the energy. It's like that tree outside. It doesn't decide who can sit under it. It just gives shade. And if you want to come sit under it, you're welcome. Doesn't matter what you've done 5 minutes ago, right? So
yes, that's true.
It's like, so it's kind of like the same thing. So energy is kind of neutral. You can use it for either way. But it's up to you how you choose to use it. And if you're going to harness it for negativity, rest assured, you're going to get slapped back so fast, because that's the risk you take when you break the laws of nature. Because when you use energy in its negative polarity, and Caleb said something to me very interesting the other day, and it's true, but it just was a reminder. He said, God didn't say you aren't allowed to break the laws. God said you shouldn't break the laws. And of course, the guys in the arcane break them all the time. And of course, use them unfairly from what we can see. But when we decide we don't have to use unfair methods, you see, you get beyond thinking you have to use unfair methods to get ahead. You're just aligned with truth, faith, trust, and truth finds you. You don't even have to try and find it. It finds you. So
That's true.
It's amazing, and it's always, and that's what it is, and that's why we say raise your frequency. I'm not some new age groomer, as I'm always being accused of. I'm saying it makes perfect sense. That's how you raise your frequency. You raise your frequency by doing the shadow work that gets rid of the blockages, which is the juicy schlocklet, that's schlitty schlocklet that these things like to suck onto. And that
exactly,
and that holds you back. So cleanliness is next to godliness, and it's also in India as well. You go in India. I spend a lot of time in India. When you're going to meditate and stuff in the temple, you've got to have showered. you've got to be very, very clean. They tell you straight, shower first, clean your body, clean your mouth, clean your being, clean your hair when you go there. And it's true. So, and of course, when you're sitting in toxic energy, clutter, dirt, that sort of stuff, oh boy, that's a breeding ground for
negativity. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say negativity sounds so small for what it truly is, though, right?
No, that's true. That's so true. And what you were saying too about the energy, even if you take it from a scientific level, it can't be created or destroyed, but you can choose to mold it into what you want it to be while you're, while you have it, while it's yours, so to speak. So, and it is so very, very important. And, I want to say this and make it clear to anybody on here. We do believe in God and Jesus, however that goes. I mean, I know that I do. I know that Chantel does also. We may not attend your church. However, placing judgment and bearing false witness against another is also something that is one of the things that are requested that we don't do if you choose not to. So, it's sometimes when we are placing judgment and doing that sort of thing, maybe we kind of need to look at the angle that we're really coming from, and if it's a place of love and godliness for another, because just because we may not be talking about something that you're comfortable with hearing, it may be something that the seeds are planted that you will come running to us at another time to have the questions answered by people, that you can trust to give you the correct answers at the time that you need them. So, this is not the 101 class. We're very, very lucky to have Chantel have this forum for people to come and congregate and talk about things that we know exist. We already know that there are ghosts and cryptids and Bigfoot and aliens. I mean, all of that kind of stuff. We already know that. So it's not the 101 class. It is the advanced class. And if you're feeling a little bit uncomfortable with it, maybe it's not for you yet at this time, but it may become that way, because you know what? When you come in this room, whether you're a believer or not, and those seeds are planted, when you come away, you're going to start to notice things. You're going to start to notice that movement in your peripheral vision, or that waffling to the air in front of you, that you now will start to recognize and say, oh my goodness, that's what the lady was talking about, type thing. Or you might notice the little hair or feather being placed somewhere of a loved one to let you know that they're there, and you can't deny it. So you coming here alone means that you are at the beginning of needing to open, if you're somebody that's a non-believer. And this is like a first step. Even if you choose to exit, you still got a little bit of that rain on you, and in a good way. So it's all good things. So we're lucky to be here. And Chantel, thank you so much for, giving us the opportunity to come here and converse about things that you can't go around and talk to your neighbors about. You can't talk about it at work, but you can talk about it here, and nobody's crazy. We all understand. We've been there. We learn from each other, and it's a wonderful thing that you're doing, in a format that you've set up here for everybody.
Well, I'm so appreciative that you can join this as well, because as I always say, my whole idea is that we get, and I was saying too, I was doing an interview with Danny Henderson the other day, and I said, I think we're all on the same team, just playing different positions.
Yes.
And I mean, we all need different positions on the same team, and I think that's so important. And as you say, to have a gathering like this with people, I love it. This is something I've been looking forward to my whole life. It's just amazing that we can do it in the way that we can. And I'm very happy that we've inspired some people to declutter.
Yeah. Like
what a great thing. What a great thing. I have to say, I spring clean every 6 months. I do not hold on to stuff. I mean, the stuff I've held on to for like my life, you could probably fit into a small suitcase. The memories and stuff. There's definitely some stuff I keep, but I don't carry things around with me. It's just, I like to out with the old, in with the new, and have certain things there, But decluttering is very liberating. It was just a full moon. I had all my crystals out on the lawn, and I've only brought them in today. So they've been out there for like 4 or 5 days now, I think. And they've had rain, wind, sun, cold, night, day, birds pecking all over them. They're very happy little crystals now. Whatever dodginess might have been trapped there has definitely gone.
That's a wonderful thing to do. And then that's important too, to keep your crystals clear and clean, and take care of salt baths, people. I mean, even if you aren't in a position to salt bath, the reason why the monks and all of them to ask you to shower is because the water running over your body neutralizes some of the things that you collect in the grocery store. You might be walking along and somebody's little piece of something attaches to you. It can do that if your arc field is not out there wide enough that it bounds off. But if that happens, getting into the shower, getting into a salt bath with a candle, so you've got all of the elements, you've got the air, you've got the fire, the water and the earth, and you soak in it for 20 minutes and you recite a prayer, whatever you're comfortable with. I like Psalms. So though that Psalms is my go-to. But it's important that you do this because it expands your arc field. So, people focus so much on taking good care of their body and taking care of their hair and taking care of, different things. They're polishing their car, but they totally overlook their energy field that they have.
The most important. Most important. They've definitely banked on that because they've gotten us to disconnect from the most important thing, giving our power over to them in essence, and instead paid us with glitz and gold and fake things,
That's true.
So it's interesting. Robert Mooney, I just want to, excuse me, interested to know if Shanti thinks millennial reign of Christ has happened. I don't even know what that is, to be perfectly honest. But what I am going to say to you, I don't like labels. People like to label things, whatever. And I found in the last 10 or 15 years, things have been labeled. I've heard words and terms about things that never existed when I was a child or even young. But what I am saying for sure is that the energy is changing. That is no maybe. All you have to do is look around you. We're in hell right now. And why do I say that? I say, look at the wars happening around you. Look at the poverty. Look at the disillusionment. Look at the illnesses. Look at the just infinite amount of problems we seem to be happening, be having on the earth.
That is so true.
And I think what's really good, because from out of the chaos, the peace is born. So can you be the peace in the chaos? Ask yourself.
That's right.
Can you be the one that stands? I always say when the roots grow deep, there's no need to fear the wind. Think about a tree growing deep roots and the wind comes in a hailstorm. The branches and the leaves can go flying, but the roots remain intact. So that's the same thing with us, Can you be the one that is calm in a chaotic situation? Or are you going to add fuel to the fire? Because we don't need any more fuel or fire that's out of control. We need focused fire now to burn, what do they call it? The fire pods or the fire break, whatever, in the mountain. That's what we need right now. We need focused fire. In yoga, we call it Agni, the inner fire, the fire that burns, the passion, the desire, that desire to achieve and move forward and set yourself a goal. Don't let your goal be attached to someone or something. Let it be something that is of greater purpose. Right now, we need to look for things that are of greater purpose. And
Absolutely.
You will know what that is for you in your own community. And that's really how we raise our vibration right now, which is
that's so true.
Wonderful time to be alive, for sure.
Well, yeah. It is what you make it. And definitely, like Chantel said, be the change that you want to see. That is so important, to make that difference, especially during these times. And try to stay away from the negative, the news media, the fear porn that is out there. Center yourself and meditate and receive the messages from your source that are your guidance. everything else that's going on around us right now will eventually, there's the end justifies the means. It's intended to be happening for a better ending, so to speak, with us. So try not to have your mind go in the direction, be led in the direction of some of the things that you're seeing on television and stuff right now.
Yeah.
It's important to watch Chantel's show a lot. So because you're going to get all good things there. And
yes.
So, yeah.
Watch this show.
And don't forget, I said in the beginning, don't forget to hit that subscribe, the thumbs up, and the notification bell. So please, thank you to do that.
Yes. And the like. And guys, I've left Lynn's details and her website address in the description area. She's written some amazing books as well that are available on Amazon, and really just helping us all to understand the paranormal. If any of you have been watching the show, my channel, not just the show, but my channel for a long time, you will know. I mean, I'm a double Aquarian, right? This is the age of Aquarius. I'm so excited to be born and to be a player in this time, because it's not about new age frilly stuff. This is what's happening. Astrology, heavenly astrology, is very, very real. Don't ever think that it's not. The astrology of the heavens right now is that we are moving in the process. None of us really know, I think, on Earth exactly, but the age of Aquarius, it's a birthing. Any birthing, as any woman knows, is painful, right? So
Yes.
we're moving into a new era. That's why the energies are changing. We're feeling the intensity. Our shit is flying up in our face in a massive way. And all I want to say to you is choose truth every time. If you are faced with running back to a lie or a deception that you've been doing for a long time, just choose truth. Break through the barrier and choose truth, because you're going to see just what a gift that is. You're not going to have the fears you expect. Just choose truth. Choose kindness. I'm not saying you've got to be a walkover. Everyone knows I can get quite sassy myself. But that's generally when I'm protecting my guests, as I most always will, because they have come through so much, the majority of them, and they deserve to be respected.
What she said. Definitely, I'm sorry to be pointing that way. What she said. Everybody listen to her. That is so true. Absolutely. Oh, wow. Yep. And you know what? We volunteered to be here during this time, too, because we are light bearers and light anchors, and we are going to be the bridges between those things. And we need to stand strong in our light and help people when that time comes. Those that are kind of on the fence, that are questioning, they're going to see the glow that we have. They're going to want to be part of that. And that's going to be our opportunity to help those at that time that may be not so inclined to do it right now, but all that's going to change coming soon. We're going to be there's so many beautiful things coming ahead that we need to focus on instead of what's going on around us right now.
That's so true. Just focus on the things that bring you joy. Looking at a flower, any little thing like that, just get back to connecting with nature. Get back to connecting with love. That's it. Anyway, everybody, I see we've had a lovely long chat today, and I'm very happy. And thank you all for joining me in the chats, for joining Lynn and myself in the chat. It's really great to have you. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your feedback. Thank you for joining us and supporting this channel. I really, really, really appreciate you all. And I see I've got two cute little mods in the channel now, Janice and Joanne. Thank you so much. And Lisa D as well. I don't think she's here today. But I just want to say thank you to everybody. And Lynn, is there anything you want to say just in closing before we bid each other farewell?
It's always a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be on your show with you. I send my love and light to everyone. If you need to reach out to me for something, or even a book that's signed, versus you can get them through Amazon. You can order them through bookstores. But if you want them personalized, you can get them from me. I do recommend, though, that if you're outside of the United States, that you purchase them from Amazon, because your shipping costs will be much, much less unless you absolutely want that signed book or something like that. Within the United States, I can personalize them for you and sign them for you at a more reasonable cost. I don't want you to have to pay a ridiculous shipping fee outside of the country. But my show with Gaia just recently came out about a month and a half ago. If you're interested in watching that, it's called Beyond Belief on the Gaia TV show. And also I've got some things coming up. The show with Chantel. I hope that she'll have me back again. And also I've got another one coming up in about 2 weeks in Australia on the Harvest Hope. So I'll be on that show as well, including a couple of other things. But I can be reached through my website, www.lynnmonet.com. That's LYNNMONET, like the painter.com. And you can reach out to me there if you want to. And again, love and light to everybody. Thank you so much. Send love to all of you.
Thank you, Lenny. And Lynn's details are in the description area in case you've missed it. Thank you, everybody. God bless you all.
Yes.
And I will see you back tomorrow. Jesse's away this week, but I've got another guest on tomorrow, a gentleman called Devin Wendell. And he's into great ways of healing, as well, alternative ways of looking at things, which I think are amazing at this point in time. So join me at 4 p.m. my time, which is an hour and a half earlier than now. In other words, the same time that Lynn and I started today, whatever time that is for you. And I'll see you with Devin Wendell tomorrow. God bless you all, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye-bye.